Good morning. At last we've managed to get live. Thank you for holding on for the delay. Unfortunately, we've had a few slight issues with the internet this morning, as you know that we're very good with. But we are back for our weekly live stream with Burnley, and we are hoping to be bigger and better than ever. So thank you for coming along this morning, as you always do. I do appreciate your support with it, and fingers crossed we can get Burnley back in form after a pretty disastrous end to last week's episode, if you remember. We were unfortunately in the Carabao Cup in the last game last week, and we were thrown out by lowly Ipswich. I think a Championship side, maybe even League One, a League One side, who we lost to last week at the end of the episode in the Carabao Cup. So apologies for the delay, apologies for the awful performance at the end of last week, and hopefully we can get back on track today. L Gaming, good morning, welcome along. Thank you for joining in the fun. Apologies everyone for the very slight delay. Virgin Media at its finest this morning. However, we have got a big episode coming up. We start with a game against the bottom team in the Premier League. That's Newcastle United, a club we know well from FM19 on this channel. And then we've got a few more to face as well. It's going to be a difficult one because we've got two European games. We've got to get used to the Sunday-Thursday move. We've also got an international break too. But after a poor start to the season, we actually recovered domestically in the last episode. While that Tottenham game, we were brilliant. However, it all went wrong against Ipswich, and I'm worrying about what the lasting effects of that will be. So hopefully it won't be too profound. We'll be able to get on. Craig's got a message. Bournemouth, Graham Jones is part of the Bournemouth setup. Is that confirmed, Craig? That honestly, that astonishes me. I know he's got a very similar type of character from what I've seen at Luton to Jason Tindall, so that doesn't really make sense. Certainly not the Eddie Howe style. He's very, not very man management type, let's say, as Luton proved, and a few of the stories since then. So if that's confirmed, that's absolutely bizarre to me. Charlie, thoughts on Lyle Taylor controversially moving to Nottingham Forest? Well, let's be honest, I think many have said it. If that's the dream mood he was holding out for, Nottingham Forest, a massive club, a lovely stadium, but I'm not sure that that's worthy of not playing for Charlton. I guess the main gain is financially, isn't it? He could have gone and played in Europe at Rangers or Celtic. I think we're both interested. Not that the fans seem to want him. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. And I don't really know how Forest will go this year. After that sort of, well, it was a bottle job, wasn't it? On the last day of the Championship season. I don't know how they'll move on from there. Craig, yes, that is confirmed. In that case, I honestly don't know what to say or how to react to that. I find that bizarre. I really don't understand why Jason Tindall would have him involved there. They're very similar characters. They've not got that sort of... Normally you see the good cop, bad cop. A lot of the players we've interviewed have talked about that. So that's really strange to me. Tranmere v Harrogate in a League Cup. What a shame we can't go to that. That'd be brilliant. L Gaming, Wrexham have signed players finally. I can't remember. There was one of them that I saw that I thought, oh, that's a great signing. Can you tell me the players you've signed? Because there was one of them that stood out and I thought he's going to be brilliant. Also, not out in your cricket game on 10, retired. Well done. That's good. Progress is being made. That's the main thing. I wouldn't even, to be honest, I wouldn't even worry about your scores for now. I would just look at, am I hitting it well? Am I getting the discipline right? Am I leaving the right shots? Am I attacking the right shots? If you get out for a duck, so be it. That's the time when you learn. So don't worry about that stuff too much. But I'm glad to hear it's going well. If we go through our 11 very quickly today, back to our strongest one for the league matches. So we've got Balogun up front, Harrott in behind him. We've got Summerskill in goal, the usual back four, but with Ruthven at left back, slightly more defensive minded. Flauhaus, Simpson and Bonner the rest. And then Vaughan, Bartels, Xavier and Edmonds the midfield four. Possibly the weirdest way I've ever announced a lineup. But let's get into the first game. Thank you for getting involved in the chat. Anyone who's new along, welcome to the channel. If you're a regular, please do chuck a thumbs up on it. It does make such a difference. Helps people find us and helps people get involved. I owe you all a massive thank you, really, because the last 4 streams have all had more than 75 views, which is ridiculous for a channel my size. And the fact that 40 of those have been live, the watch time is incredible. I'm so delighted with how it's going. And we brought up episode 10. We should celebrate today, really. We've got a few familiar names in this Newcastle side. Gabriel Martinelli on the left wing. David Raya in goal. Obviously the Brentford keeper in real life. And a fair few real players there. So we're going to expect a much better performance. And we hope our first team won't do as badly as our backup one did last time. Stuart Pearce back at West Ham. Yeah, I saw that, Craig. He was on TalkSport this morning, wasn't he, talking about it? I'm not surprised under Moyes. Moyes has got the right sort of characters there. And the only mistake was them sacking him the first time for a more sort of reputable name or exotic name. There was a left-back from Solihull and Elliot Durrell. Yeah, Elliot Durrell was a good signing. That was yesterday. Who was the left-back from Solihull? Can't remember the name. But yeah, to be honest, the work Wrexham have done looks really good. And this season, it's about making sure they progress up the league. Hopefully getting a top half, maybe even a sniff at the playoffs, depending on how other teams do. Obviously, there's the uncertainty as Newcastle have gone ahead with their first shot. Really poor defending. There's the uncertainty, isn't there, surrounding Macclesfield and what's going to happen with them. You thought you were playing Stevenage until this midweek in the National League. So, yeah, that's going to be a bit strange. Yeah, as Charlie says, Elliot Durrell's a really good signing. He's someone I think we were hoping to interview on the podcast, but unfortunately, that hasn't come off yet. There's still a couple of others we've interviewed who are clubless at the minute, so maybe one of those will go to Wrexham. And then I'll be able to give it a nice plug, won't I? But here's Xavier in the middle. Long ball out to the right to Vaughan. Lovely opportunity to get it in the box to Balogun. Back to the edge. Oh, Xavier should have shot first time. But second time Edmonds makes no mistake. And it's 1-1, 25 minutes on the clock. Thoroughly deserved on the balance of play, I think. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Newcastle have only had the one shot on target. The striker was brilliant. He created it for himself. He's a real player as well. Good experienced striker. And to be honest, we need to win this game if we want to get in Europe. Tyler Garrett, the left back. Yes, that's the name. He's another good signing. There's some really good players about there. It looks like at half time it's going to be 1-1. We've not really made the most of our chances. Not hit the target too often. I will apologise if you can hear a slight sound in the background as well. I've had to leave the fan on again. I'm absolutely boiling. But either way, it's been a decent first half. It would be a good plug, you're right. To be honest, we've got loads of good interviews coming up. We've tried to focus in the off-season on a lot of the non-league ones. Because that sort of National League North and South level, there's so many interesting stories and it's so unique to what you think. When you see about players' moves and transfers and you have an automatic assumption. I think like last week's one with Richard Paquette, that was a really good example of it. An FA Cup hero for Havant and Waterlooville, a league playoff final for QPR, and some weird moves in between. But then you sort of see between the lines what the reasons are and some of the financial issues that crop up in lower leagues, the wages issues. And it really is quite an eye-opener for football fans, particularly lower league fans. And the non-league pyramid's going to be affected more than ever now. Is that a free kick or a penalty? We're going to VAR. Free kick. We were hoping it was going to be our lucky day, but it's not to be there. Charlie, I had a curry for dinner last night. If you could only eat one curry for the rest of your life, what would it be? That is a cracking question as well. We've got some contenders, so let's run through them. Patia, absolutely up there. Definitely, it's sweet, it's tangy, but it's spicy as well. You've got to love that. Tomato based. Dupiazza, because I'm a big onion fan, but probably not spicy enough to be my number one. Or, I think my favourite, if I go to the takeaway, my favourite is the garlic chicken curry. So I have to go for spicy garlic chicken. I think that's probably top of the pile, just about. As Edmonds puts one wide and we're going to make subs. So yeah, that would be me. Tomato based spicy, garlic and onion, you can't go wrong. So Leon Lowry's going to come up front because Sunday Balogun's not had the best game. On the right wing, there's not much we can do. In fact, we're going to leave Balogun on. Let's go and make tactical tweaks. Vaughan will be replaced. He's not had the best game. Leon Lowry on for him. And in fact, we might move Vaughan further forward permanently because he seems to be clamouring for that. In midfield, Bartle will be replaced by Matas. Not sure which one's better as the Mazzala. Don't think there's much difference. And then Ashley Harrott replaced by... Is it going to be Mullen or Richards? Which one's actually rated better? Mullen's 2.5 star now, but has had a few special moments this year. And Phil Richards, probably the better player, but less potential and not the same morale at the moment. So let's go for Nathan Mullen. On for Harrott. They're all much of a muchness. And with 20 minutes left, we need to nick a winner. Thank you to everyone who's joining along this morning. I do appreciate your support with it. If you haven't yet, please chuck a thumbs up on there. Come and get involved in the chat. And if you're new along, subscribe to the channel. There is plenty of FM content at the minute. Let me just catch up with the chat. Wrexham didn't offer Lawler a contract, but he's a good CV. He's signed for Harrogate. Yeah, Harrogate are a good footballing team, so they wouldn't be signing a centre-half if they didn't think he could play. If I'm right in thinking, Lawler, he's also covered in central midfield before. And I tell you what, we've just made the right change at number 10. We were talking about Mullen or Richards. Mullen's come on and he's just slid one in the bottom corner, assisted by Leon Lowry as well. They're the sort of changes as a manager you love to gloat about when they go right. But it's Newcastle on the attack again. And after dominating the game, the last thing we want to do is concede a silly goal. As Ruthven picks it up on the left, switch of play to Matas, back into Xavier and out to Lowry. Good football from Burnley, and we'd like to make this comfortable now. Lowry's going alone. Brilliant run. Oh, what a goal. Leon Lowry with a solo strike. Vinicius doesn't deserve the assist for that. That is Leon Lowry from the start. Luton have got Norwich in the Carabao Cup. Wow. The biggest tie we could have got, probably. I mean, one of the relegated sides. I know Watford would have been nice, but with fans not being allowed, that probably wouldn't have been really acceptable or really good for us. So out of that, it's then Norwich or Bournemouth, and Norwich are the bigger club. A repeat of the 2013 FA Cup tie would be good for us. We've won 3-1, a brilliant result to start the day, some wonderful goals from the substitutes. El Gaming, considering we're talking about food, what's your favourite type of pasta? Probably tagliatelle I'd go for. I mean, I have penne the most because it's the cheapest, it's the quickest to get in the supermarket. So most of the time we live off the spaghetti and penne because they're the two you can get the smart price of. But when I'm in for a treat, tagliatelle is definitely the one for me. You can't beat it. It's the perfect blend between spaghetti and pasta. That's the way I would describe it. Feels luxury as well. Watford not in the first round, of course, Craig. Sorry, that's my mistake. Have Luton signed anyone else gaming? Only one so far, new signing. So all of the players who were out of contract that they wanted to keep, so which was everyone bar Butterfield and McManaman, they've managed to keep on for new deals. So Loire, Glenn Ray being the key one, and a few others too. But we've only made the one signing, which is Jordan Clark on a free from Accrington. So he's a really good player, actually. Let's just go through these scout reports. Some of them are 18, but they're not rated that well. Aha, we've got a 17-year-old there. Let's have a look at him. He is a right back, which we need a backup of. So we'll look at that. So yeah, Jordan Clark, the only signing, but he's one of the top chances created, assists made in League One last year. So basically, we've got rid of McManaman on a free. He was on bigger wages, a more experienced player. Quite often injured, not fit. Though, to be fair, he came on, he scored crucial goals for us at key times. He did a really good job, and we're delighted we had him last year. But Jordan Clark, a cheaper replacement, probably a better, younger one, and more physically fit as well. So I think it's really good business from Luton. Liverpool have won 9-0, so I think they might be up there with the favourites this year. But we're back in the European places, and that's a good start to the season for us. We've got Rio Ave, the Portuguese side, coming up in midweek, hoping to add to our good European start. I'm really looking forward to this, actually. I feel like we can start to find some form. Maybe with the Europa League 2, going out of the League Cup's a blessing in disguise. And if we can win the Europa League 2, this series, we've achieved what we needed to, and we can be delighted with that. Preaker, actually, we will put down to 60 minutes because we might need him on Thursday. Jordan Wood won't play. There's quite a few others, but they're all relatively fit, to be fair. Let me just catch up with the chat again. That's probably my favourite pasta as well, or pen. Didn't spell it right, but yeah, you got pen right. Pen spot on. I would say probably, yeah. Pen's the most obvious because everyone gets it because it's the cheapest, isn't it? But considering the lockdown we had and people's panic over pasta, you took what you could. So I think we ended up with macaroni for a month because that's what the local corner shop had in stock. And we lived off pita breads for about 3 weeks too. Charlie, have you thought about any new mini saves in FM? For example, maybe only where you could only sign players who are a free agent. So I'm glad you've mentioned that, actually. Obviously, we've started the Macclesfield one, which there's not really any restrictions on in terms of signings or anything. But it's one where we're sort of counting down the days, knowing that what we do on the pitch might not be enough. Because the Macclesfield situation is they start financially insecure, an owner who doesn't want to be there, £1 million in debt. And as you saw last week, I won't spoil too much on the pitch, but we got to the start of the season, having reduced our wage bill by $1,500 a week, making really good signings, and we're still hemorrhaging money. So you've got to bear in mind that administration is a real possibility there. You then balance the, do we want to try our hardest to stay 12 points clear of the relegation zone in the league, or do we want to go for a cup run that's going to potentially save us financially? It's a really, really tough balancing act, and you have to make split-second decisions. And whether you're making the right ones or not, you don't know really, but that's been interesting. I've got another save which I've recorded various episodes of, which will take over from the head coach. So I think at the moment, providing all goes well at Barcelona, it should be our last club. Either this season or next season, we want to win La Liga and the Champions League. Once we've won the Champions League, that will be it. To do that in a head coach is a massive achievement. So once we've done that, we will then be starting a save over in Northern Ireland with Cliftonville. I'll be releasing on the community tab later this week the thumbnail, the trailer on Twitter like we did for the Macclesfield one. But I'm really excited for that. I've recorded about half a season. Obviously there's European football at the start. I've picked a semi-professional club rather than the 3 professional ones, so we can try and build Northern Irish football before FM21 comes out. We won't be able to get right to the top, but it's something I wanted to do as a teaser to see whether I'd like it, whether it would get enough interest from people watching and enough interaction, and if so, something like that with Wales or Northern Ireland for FM21 is something I'd look at as a mini-series, or maybe even a live stream series. So let me know what you think when that comes out. But yeah, certainly in the future, I've talked about for FM21 with Hitchin. We were looking at doing the long-term save with them. But rather than just doing a free-for-all like we do with Dorking, I know we don't use the player search screen that, but generally we can sign whoever's scouted. We can scout players that we've watched. I was thinking about doing it as an academy challenge where we can only sign under 18s, or we can only sign people who are homegrown at Hitchin. Perhaps even doing it as, like you say, only ever signing free agents or under 18s. It just depends how strict we want to be on the rules. So we'll wait and see on that front. But yeah, certainly it's something we've thought about. And what I will do, I have mentioned this before, in the build-up to FM21, because some people have asked in the comments about replays, about match highlight length, about the sort of style of the episode, is I want to sort of do 4 or 5 different votes on the community page, get a consensus. Unfortunately, we can't do them in the videos anymore, but just to see what you guys think and would like to see overall. So let's just go and pick our backup 11. It's the hardest thing about the Europa League 2 this year is we're having to change our lineup every game. So it does cause a little bit of a delay. However, we're pretty happy with where we are. So we've not got any big complaints to make. Matas will come in. What else are we going to do in the middle there? I'm just trying to make sure that we don't play any of the unusual team. Leon Lowry would come in, but he might not play up front yet. On the left wing, Dwight McNeil for experience. Marcus Vinicius, to be honest, has been a bit of a letdown. He's not improving as much. He's not doing as well. So experience comes in there. McNeil deserves that as well. And the number 10 role, it will be Nathan Mullen. The other central midfielder will be Phil Richards, if I can find him. And Matas, I think, will then be the Mazzala. Yeah, he's the better at it anyway. On the right-hand side, we either play Davis on the right-hand side, who is a decent player, got a bit of pace, or Andy May up front, who is younger and homegrown at the club. But I think it's going to be Davis on the right. On the bench, we'll get all the others who aren't in. So May, Preeka, who we also looked at playing before, but didn't really star for us. He is a good striker, but he's declining already. We've also got Marcus Vinicius. We've got Whitehouse there. Wood or Chahed. Let's put Chahed on the bench instead. And then defensively, Ross Marsh. And one more. It will have to be one of the first teamers at the back. Bonner's got 96% fitness. Flauhout, 97. Let's get him in there. So that's going to be our 11 for today. Let's get into the Rio Ave match. Hopefully more positive news. So let me catch up with the chat quickly. L Gaming, who asked me last week about a Wrexham prediction? I think it was Craig, yeah. When do you have to do it by? We haven't picked a date recording the next couple of weeks. Daniel, how did you get on with your predictions? He's asking that because I came last in the league predictions for last year. Can I point out the year before I came first, I got the FA Cup final right with Arsenal when both of the others went for Chelsea. I got the Northern Irish Cup final right, as did Charlie. Got the National League final right with Harrogate beating Notts County. Got the League One final right, Wickham beating Oxford. So I think it was just Brentford in the Championship I got wrong, and League Two. I think I went for Exeter over Northampton. And looking back now, I've no idea why, because it was Alan McCormack, and we always knew he would win. L Gaming, okay, I don't know yet, because we need a few more signings. That's the thing, is it's going to be harder for us to do our predictions this year on the podcast because the transfer window is closing, a month after the season starts. The League Cup ties are 4.5 weeks before the transfer window, so it's going to be very hard to guess. Hopefully, it looks like there's progress being made towards non-league crowds next month, so I should be able to get matchday vlogs back up and running with the lads, and we'll probably be visiting Craig in his managerial duties for that, because they play in Step 7. Frutoso picks it up to Fabio. Let's just see out this attack, and we'll catch up with the chat again. Grondona to Frutoso. We'd like to get a win under our belts. And this is the thing with the other nations. We don't know how many players they're resting, if they're playing their first 11, how seriously they're taking this. McNeil to Richardslow over the top for Davis. This is the chance. Lowry shot blocked. Out for a corner, but a good start to the game, actually. And Lowry's got the armband today. I thought it'd be McNeil. And it's him who's delivering the corner to the back post. No one gets there. And I think that's going to be cleared away. But we're getting outplayed at the moment. So let's go to balanced. Let's demand a bit more. And let's catch up with the chat. Saving Berry might be a good one for next year. So I'd like to do a sort of far lower down one. The main reason with Berry is because they're going to be in step 6, I believe. Step 5 or 6. It means it's going to be so hard to get to the top. I've mentioned this before. Like, I'd like to do one with Crawley Green, my most local side, in step 5. But the difficulty is at the moment where I'm working pretty much full time. And I can only really do one episode a day. As we spurn another chance with Leon Lowry. Is that you can't put videos out every day for one series. And if you do that, sort of every other day, like we are with Dorking at the moment, you never get to anywhere near the top by the end of the year. And that's the difficulty. So we could probably get Bury back to League 1, League 2. But to take them to glory, you need to do it every day. So maybe in the long term, if I can make this part of my job, if we can increase to the stage where there's enough income to sort of make it mean I can reduce my hours at work slightly, at that point, we could put out 2 series Monday to Friday. And then it becomes a viable option. Now we're into this, and to be honest, at 0-0, it doesn't really look like a great tie. As the corner's come in from the left from Rio Ave, it's headed away, but it's still floating around on the edge of the box. And if we lose our home games, we're in big trouble. And that one's just wide of the post, but very much a scare. So let's go and make tactical tweaks, shall we? Leon Lowry seems to play better on the right wing anyway. So we're going to put up front Andy May. Leon Lowry will go forward as an inside forward on attack. On the left, McNeil will be replaced by Vinicius. Or should we bring Whitehouse on? Whitehouse isn't anywhere near as good, so we'll leave it for now. Chahed could come on. He's a good player on the right. Certainly a decent youngster. Ross Marsh can come on. Matas has had an average game. So let's bring on Ross Marsh. He'll come on as the Mazzala. Is there anything else he can do better? Central midfielder on support or auto. That will do. 25 minutes for Burnley to nick a winner. And to be honest, Rio Ave looked the most likely. So I don't want to get too excited. We are going to go positive again just for 5 minutes. See what effect it has on the match stats. Certainly none in terms of highlights. Although we've got it with Garner now. Mullen loses out and it's cleared long. Fabio wins the header. To Marsh. Richards. Marsh again. And we're starting to play good football. But we're not really going anywhere. The tempo's slow. And there's not really a sign of a breakthrough. Although here's Marcus Vinicius. Cuts inside. Oh, what a save. Should have really buried it. Could have gone either side. But as it stands, it's still a very decent save. Yeah, it's the same for our game. Because Bury are in a low tier, that's the sort of thing I'd like. I miss going to non-league. Wrexham chanting. Yeah, that's the main thing. Non-league football is the heart of it. And even much lower down, to be honest. When you go to step 5 and 6, and you can go into the clubhouse, you can get a can of Coke for £1. Something you'd never do at a professional club. There's 20, 30 people there, but they're volunteers who are so passionate about what they do. And those sort of clubs are so important to the football pyramid. We've drawn 0-0 against Rio Ave, so not the best result, but Rapid Vienna have beaten the Israelis. So we're on 4 points with the Portuguese team, and Rapid Vienna are ahead of the Israelis. So after that third game, which we will play today, we'll sort of get an indication of where we are. But let's skip ahead to Man City, as things are about to get a lot tougher in the league. Thoughts so far on the England v Pakistan series. I mean, it's not really that easy to judge, is it? Not this test anyway. The first one was a good match. The rain delays. It's the classic English summer, isn't it? Causing trouble. We've still got a few bowlers in form, which is good to see. It's good to see Jimmy Anderson take a few wickets this time, actually. He was struggling a bit previously, but generally, you can't really judge the last test because of the rain. Thank you to everyone who's joining along. Great to see the number of viewers and likes creeping up. Thank you to everyone who has popped in. Please do chuck a thumbs up on it if you haven't already. Come and get involved with the rest in the chat. It is great to see. And we'll talk all things sport. We're going to talk about snooker today, I'm afraid. If you're not a fan, you're going to be bored to death for 10 minutes because there was some brilliant snooker this weekend. Possibly the best week of snooker I've ever watched. Certainly as a fan, it's the most memorable. Definitely at the Crucible as well. Great to see at the weekend fans back in there as well. I know it was a small percentage of the capacity. I know it was a very, very minimal crowd, but fans back in is a positive sign. And that was one of the pilot events agreed before. So the fact that's gone well is a good sign for us so far. Thoughts on Wickham's new goalkeeper kit? The worst thing I've ever seen. Honestly, it's atrocious. I mean, I like Wickham. They've done wonders for us on the podcast. They're a good club. I hope they survive in the Championship. But that kit, the goalkeeping kit, is the worst thing I've ever seen on a football pitch. At professional level, certainly. We've got to the weekend now, so hopefully other results will go in our favour and take the pressure off the City game a bit. I do want to talk briefly about today's head coach episode. Not because it's one of the most eventful ones of the episode in terms of importance. I would be lying to you if I said that. However, it features possibly the most ridiculous goal, and bearing in mind the one we had at Gladbach a few years ago, it potentially has the most ridiculous goal I've ever conceded on FM. So without giving too many spoilers of how it happened and how it went about, I would encourage you to check it out, and I will put it on Twitter afterwards so you can see. Not being biased here, but from where I've been in non-league recently, I think Wrexham have the best atmosphere, and I thought Notts County would have a better one, but Chesterfield's was good. So to be honest, when we went to Notts County in League 2 with Luton, I know we took 4,500 fans, we'd got promotion, etc. But the Notts County fans were class. I've got to give them that. So in my experience, Notts County were brilliant. I guess it depends what part of the season you went for Notts County, because they had ownership issues early on, and they've sort of risen as the season's gone on. Chesterfield, see, I've only been to the old Chesterfield ground, which was on Boxing Day in 2008, Luton's -30 season. And again, the atmosphere was good, the fans were really friendly, but it was Boxing Day, you always get a bumper crowd, so it's hard to judge. I've never been to Wrexham, so I wouldn't possibly comment on that. What I would say is when Luton were in non-league, we definitely had the best atmosphere. We were selling out Kenilworth Road, and it's an intimidating place anyway. Atmosphere, so it's either Wrexham or them, I think, in the National League. I mean, there's some really big clubs down there now. I mean, Tranmere obviously got promoted out of there. They were a massive club down there for a while. When we were there, we had Oxford, who had a pretty good atmosphere. But yeah, otherwise, I wouldn't argue. Wrexham are one of the bigger clubs on paper down there. So I would expect them with the ground, the style of it. I'd expect there to be a fairly big atmosphere there. Charlie, tough question. Was Ronnie O'Sullivan disrespectful to Mark Selby in the semi-final? No, it's not a tough question, really. So, obviously, he's talked about for anyone who didn't watch, last Friday was ridiculous for snooker. Both semi-finals went to a deciding frame. You had two multiple world champions in Ronnie O'Sullivan and Mark Selby, and two players who had never been in the final before in Anthony McGill and obviously Kyron Wilson, who got there in the end. So the Wilson v McGill one was the best frame of snooker you'll ever see. The most dramatic, possibly one of the worst standards you'll see in a semi-final. There were so many fouls, it's unbelievable. It set a scoring record because of that. It went down to the wire. Both players, the tension got to them. They missed hundreds of chances. And then you had the Ronnie O'Sullivan v Selby one, which was such high quality. Brilliant snookers, brilliant break building, loads of centuries towards the end. But there was this little situation with Ronnie O'Sullivan and Selby, where Selby is a master at getting people into snookers. He slows the game down, sorts of draws Ronnie O'Sullivan into his game normally. And this time round, Ronnie O'Sullivan just didn't get involved in it. So the last session, he was just sort of hammering his way out of snookers, just trying to hit the balls as hard as possible, not worrying if he gave away 4 points, and hoping that if he missed them, he then wouldn't have to have it put back and replay them. And it worked. It rattled Mark Selby because he didn't know how to deal with it. Mark Selby again was trying to slow down. His shot count was slower than the rest of the tournament, so he was clearly trying the same tactic on O'Sullivan. They're probably my two favourite snooker players, so I'm not saying I hate Mark Selby or whatever, but in my opinion, Ronnie O'Sullivan beat Mark Selby at his own game. Mark Selby was trying to slow it down, and Ronnie O'Sullivan didn't get affected by it. And even then, Mark Selby had a golden chance to clear up at 16-all, and missed a tricky shot, had a poor positional shot, and it allowed Ronnie in, and he does what he did best. He did what he does best, He cleared up. And in the end, it was the final we deserved. It was always going to be a slightly underwhelming final, because you were never going to top those two semis. With a new finalist coming in against Ronnie O'Sullivan, you were probably never going to get the closest match in the world. And Kyron in the middle, when he was close, missed a couple of great chances to get back on terms. And after that, you sort of knew. It was the mid-session interval of the third session. And at that point, you knew Ronnie was going to win. But 6 world titles, an incredible achievement. A great moment for Kyron Wilson to be in the final. And a brilliant week of snooker. On the front foot, at the Crucible, on the BBC. And of course, as well, you've got the fact that crowds were back in as one of the pilot events. And that will benefit football later down the line as well. Because if they can do it safely in small capacity for an indoor event, there'll be no excuse for non-league football. And that will be huge moving forward. So let's just pick for the lineup for this game and we'll get back to the chat. I'm just remembering who the 7 are I normally pick. I've missed one out and I can't remember who it is. Nathan Mullen. There we go. So everyone's fit. Our normal 11's back. I think the same 11 we used in the first game. So let's go and get into the City match. L Gaming, hang on. What was my question I put in the comments of the Macclesfield one? My favourite FM20 series. Yeah, well, I haven't forgotten that one. I've been answering some of my comments before I came live, so I've caught up with all of them. Ronnie's Q action. Yeah, I think he found it in the final. There was definitely some form of dare or bet or something there with someone. Because that interview after the semi-final was hilarious. Certainly, do you know what? You can agree or disagree with his statements. When he talked about the standard of the young players, I promise you 50,000 people that wouldn't have watched the day before will have seen that on Twitter, on YouTube, whatever, and will have tuned into the snooker. And that happened to be 2 of the best semi-finals you've ever seen. The Mark Williams quarter-final was brilliant as well. We've got the situation where before the final, he just talked about the Q action. Again, garnered interest into the interview. The Mark Selby one helped as well, in fairness. And then more people would have tuned into the start of the final. So he's box office, and that's what's... Every sport needs that, and he's provided that for snooker. So Barry Hearn, while he'll come out and have to say, oh, the standard's fine, don't worry about the players, he will secretly have been delighted that next day more people are going to watch because of those comments. And then 2 young players produced a brilliant semi-final. So it's probably worked brilliantly because, yes, it sort of proved that his comments weren't potentially exactly right. But then equally, it's got more people watching those semi-final for those young players to prove it. So it's the best of both worlds for me. But as he did say in the final, Kyron Wilson is one of those exceptions to the young players. He's streets ahead of people his age. And it's arguably, it is right. There's probably only about 10 players under 30 who can compete in the top 32. And when Ronnie O'Sullivan, Mark Williams, John Higgins, Mark Selby and the likes were coming through, there were 20 of them. They were dominating the sport with a few of the experienced ones. Sunday Balogun's missed a chance, but we are doing well against City here. So let's just keep up with the football ones. So I'll come back to your question about the best FM20 series, because I'm still undecided on that. I have a question about what channels are League 2 on, because I hardly ever see them on TV. So you're absolutely right about that. League 1 and 2 and the Championship, the EFL contract is all on Sky, hence the sponsorship with Sky Bet. But almost all of the TV games are Championship ones. And that makes it really difficult. I've always argued this, and I will continue to do so. They did it briefly with the Championship. Where Sky Sports don't want to show many League 1 or 2 games, and it is going to increase next season after the current contract ends from 2021. What I don't understand is why they don't have a little sports package, maybe 10-15 games a season, with League 1 and 2 games packaged in, that they sell off to BBC, ITV, Channel 5, Quest, whoever from Free TV, Free Sports, Eurosport, there's loads of good channels. But they don't show them, send them off to them, channels that are more widely available, and just have 10 or 15 games on mainstream TV a season. because it's brilliant for lower league football. It won't cost a huge amount because actually the cost of the TV contract isn't going to be huge for the League 1 and 2 clubs. It's the exposure, it's getting people to see lower league football and getting young people to be able to see free professional football on TV. And that for me is something I would strongly advise. The good news after this season is that the FA Cup's coming back entirely free to air. So from the first round onwards, it will all be on BBC and ITV shared. So that's a good sign. But it's small progress at the minute. So I'd love to see that with league football. Let's get our subs on again. Matas, am I going to bring Richards on this time? I want to basically look who's better defensively out of Mullen and Richards. It's probably just about Mullen, to be fair. But Richards is fitter. So I'm going to bring Richards on. And with 10 minutes to go, we're going to drop back to a balanced duty. Because although it's been an even game, we don't want to get caught out. And look who City have got in goal. It's Gregory Bernard, who those of you who are watching the head coach will recognise from Barcelona. And I'll give you another little spoiler. He features in today's worst own goal. Here's the man between the sticks. The worst goal we've ever conceded in FM. And he's the goalkeeper who's involved in it. As Manchester City head over the bar, we drop to balanced. 0-0 would be a brilliant result here if we can hang on. Stoke top of the league. Stoke are... do you know what? Stoke are going to have a brilliant season this year. They're top of the Premier League here. Probably won't last, I'm afraid, as we do get a good 0-0 draw. But in a championship this year, they're going to have a good season. Am I right in saying they've signed John Obi Mikel or are about to? Because Michael O'Neill, a brilliant manager. And that's the good thing he's had with Northern Ireland. He's had that balance of managing one or two top-class players and then having a squad that also involves 20 other lower league or championship League 1 standard players. So that's going to be a really good experience to be able to have big stars in and know he can manage them. So I think that's going to be brilliant. Thank you also to everyone who's coming along. The number of viewers has just shot up. So thank you so much for coming in. Please do chuck a thumbs up on it if you haven't already. If you haven't been involved before, come and get involved in the chat. Come and say hello. Let us know who you are. It's great to interact with you all. Even if it's just thanking you for watching. It's great to know who's here. Yeah, so John Obi Mikel's going to be a great signing for you. And Michael O'Neill, the perfect manager. He wouldn't bring in any big names that will unsettle people. Yeah, Rolls Royce. And the thing is, he's so good in that sort of holding enforcer role that he'll be able to let the other midfielders run free, use the legs. You've got the likes of Kluka still, haven't you? Is Kluka still at Stoke? Because he was a good player as well. And also in the middle, John Obi Mikel's an underrated footballer. Don't forget, for Nigeria, he carried them to an African Nations playing as a number 10 with a really young side. So it's not something that's new to him. And I think if you can get people like him in and then let the likes of Butland go, you'll probably get, 15-20 million at a minimum for Butland. That can be a huge way to move forward for you. I'll definitely be tipping Stoke if they continue to sign well for the top 6 this season. L Gaming, I've missed one question from you. Do you prefer Arsenal or Chelsea? And give a reason. I personally prefer Arsenal. So I would say Arsenal as well. It was a bit hard for me because my favourite footballer, or my first favourite top-class footballer, was Gianfranco Zola. So I followed Chelsea because of that until he left. But Arsenal, the style of the club, the way they play, I enjoy more. Particularly under Wenger in those 2000 years. And equally with Chelsea, once the Abramovich money came in, it's not the sort of thing I enjoy in football. So probably those two reasons combined. But when Chelsea had those front three, Hasselbank, Johnson, Zola, I would watch them keenly anytime they were on TV. They could have a Football League channel on Sky Sports like they do for cricket and golf and stuff. Well, technically they do. So they have Sky Sports Premier League and then Sky Sports Football, which is for the internationals and the championship games. But again, and the Scottish games now as well. But they don't really seem to focus on League 1 and 2. So why not give 10 games to the 10 games to BBC or a free-to-air channel and let them get exposure to the league? They're still going to be naming it as the Sky Bet League 1 or Sky Bet League 2. So they're still going to get their brand exposure. Charlie, I'm worried about the lack of replays in the FA Cup. I don't think they'll bring them back next year. So this season, while I don't agree with it, I can understand it. However, they have to bring them back next year. Everywhere up to the 4th round, they need to bring them back. Because those ones round 1 to 4 are the ones that make the biggest difference. And in the pre-rounds, I can sort of understand them not coming back. But then if you don't have the replays, you need to increase the prize money generally, which would make the difference. So either way in the qualifying rounds, either increase the prize money or keep the replays in. And then from league round 1 to 4, I think replays have to stay. The one good thing I will say on that is the Carabao Cup, they've got rid of the two-legged semi-final. And that's because this is all set up for the elite clubs. That's going to make a far bigger difference because normally you've got 3 or 4 elite clubs there. Stoke are top of the league on this. I didn't notice till now. Yeah, they're top of the Premier League. So they are a pretty good side on here. If I remember rightly, they've been in the top half a few years. Oh, maybe not. The last 2 years they've been 11th, so they must have fallen away late on. Their young striker, Bruce Stenson's a very good one. Is he in England international yet? Not yet, but loads for the under-21s. Should we see who they've been signing this summer? I want to see why they're up there. They've still got Josh Tyman, actually. Good young player, Josh Tyman. Any other real players there? Let's put them in age order. We'll find out. A few out on loan. Oliver Skipp, the old Tottenham one. I'm sure Bazuna, was he real? He started at Shamrock Rovers and then Hearts. I'm sure he was in our Ireland squad in the head coach, if I remember rightly. So let's look at what business they've done this summer. Just so we can see if they've been signing big or anything like that. Not huge, 48 million. They've not really sold anyone, so there have been additions. So 10 million for João Jesus. Good young left back. Not really quick, but mentally very strong. There was another one for about 15 million as well. Marcio Silverio from Genk. Tricky winger. Good player, not great. But again, they're increasing their squad, aren't they? So they've got game changers off the bench. Andrea Marcato, centre-half. He's very good. Sort of reminds me of Mitchell Baker. Very good physically and mentally. And Italian defenders are always the best mentally. Ivan Farioli was the other one. They've got a loan from Liverpool too. I tell you what, they've signed really well. They seem to have a really good squad there. They got a free from Napoli, a loan from Liverpool, who is a brilliant winger. They've signed some really good players, this Stoke side. They will fall away, but they'll definitely be in that sort of top 7 hunt. And again, the free signing from Napoli is brilliant. That is a really good window. Who's in charge there? Their manager is Javi Mattia. I will admit I've never heard of him. He was a player with Aris in Greece at the start. Went to Albacete as a coach in his native Spain. Caretaker manager, interim manager. And then managed in both Spain. Oh, in Spain, in Denmark or Norway is that? Denmark. And in Holland as well. It's a really good side. And he looks like a good manager. He's been there 3 years and he's taken them to 2 11th place finishes. Can't argue with that. They're the highest finishes in years. Who do you think the best England's 4 best bowlers are in cricket? Are you talking seam bowler? Or what my attack would be? So my 5 bowlers in the test match. Ben Stokes if fit as the all-rounder. I would still have Moeen Ali back as the spinner. I'm not convinced by Dom Bess, but I understand, like Ali, he's a better batsman. So that's why he comes in. Broad at the moment is on absolute fire, as is Chris Wokes. They're the 2 informed men. And then I think you go between Archer or Anderson, dependent on the pitch. So at the moment, obviously, they're both playing because Stokes can't bowl. But for me, I think you go between those 2. We're in the middle of the international break, so if you wonder why we're a bit quiet on the FM front, this is the stage where we talk about all other things. But yeah, for me, I think Archer, he needs to be gently introduced to Test cricket. He's not as important to our Test team as he is to our one-day and T20 teams. So as a result, I would say and Jimmy Anderson's nearly 40, so he's not going to be able to play every match. So I'd say keep the others in and rotate those 2. And then on the very odd occasions, you can drop Broad out and play both. You could bring Mark Wood in for a game. You've got that quality. But yeah, that would be my argument. Tom, on the train to Settle, what are you doing in Settle? Could you let me know? It's the best train route in the country, the Leeds to Carlisle one. We didn't know it was famous until we went there. Thanks for popping along as well, Tom. We didn't realise until we went for the Carlisle game that it was a big sort of ground. A big sort of train route, sorry, a famous one. So that was really good. Let me catch up because I am miles behind here. Thank you for everyone getting involved in the chat. It's brilliant to see. Clucas is good. Yeah, you've got Nick Powell still. Joe Allen to come back. I'm really not sure about Joe Allen because he's such a good footballer. I just thought with him at Stoke, what a player. But he doesn't, unless Michael O'Neill gets the best out of him, which I trust him to. That midfield 4, if he wants to play a diamond, is the best in the league. Powell could play off either side if he plays a front three, so that doesn't matter either. But John Obi Mikel, Clucas and Allen, what a midfield three. There's not going to be a better midfield three in the Championship. And Nick Powell off the side, if you can get the best out of him, you've still got decent players in attacking positions. And the good thing this summer is he's getting some of the big earners out of the club. And he won't be afraid to do it. And the board will trust him because he's a big name manager. I love watching... That's just Sam, not Damn. I thought you were just saying Damn Clucas is good. I love watching Vanarama on BT Sport. Me too. The coverage is brilliant. And I'll say the same for the Scottish Premier League up until last year where the rights ended, and the National League. BT cover lower league football really well. They treat it with respect. They're not so much in the FA Cup because you get the big name commentators who come down and they don't really know what they're doing. But that coverage is leaving them. It seems that BT are focusing more on National League, Champions League, Premier League, which is a good move. And of course they'll have the new Europa Conference when that starts. So they'll have clubs from sort of Scotland and Northern Ireland and Ireland that can hopefully qualify for that. But yeah, I really love their coverage of that. I'd love to see them cover more games. At the moment they have 30. I'd love to see them sort of do one a week, like go up to 45, 46. Unfortunately, where we're going to be switching from Virgin Media to Sky, which is... I know I've talked about Virgin Media before. I'm not going to rant and rave. They're the reason we started late today. But the simple fact is moving to Sky for the similar package is going to be less than half the price. So we have to go. The Virgin Media one with the price hikes, it's not affordable for us anymore. So with Sky, I will lose BT Sport, but I'll gain Sky Sports for half the price. So I'll see loads more EFL. Won't be able to see the National League ones as easily. Although I will get some favours out of friends who have got BT to see if I can watch the odd big one. But yeah, unfortunately that's a trade-off. So it's one of the things I'm going to lose out on. But with it looking like non-league crowds will come back and EFL ones won't, Luton season ticket holders are 3/4 of the ground. And most season ticket holders, because of my age, have had it longer than me. So I would imagine that I'll be going to more non-league games than Luton games this year. So hopefully I can make up for missing some on the telly. Josh Tyman can't really play left back. No, it's a bit of a weird one. He was always sort of sold as a left back, wasn't he? And he suits playing as a wing back. And I would argue he's a bit more like a Gareth Bale. He would suit for playing further forward. Left in a midfield four, I think he'd be ideal. And yeah, you've just said the same further down. I completely agree with you. Yeah, there's more National League games on TV than Football League 2 and 1. Like I said, should be on BBC or ITV or something. Yeah, it doesn't matter which free-to-air channel it's on. I mean, Quest do brilliant coverage of the EFL highlights, so that would be a natural sort of move for them. They've got a partnership with Sky for the highlights and things, so why not show a few games on? Maybe just show the EFL trophy games as a start. Or a Carabao Cup game from the earlier rounds. It just seems like a way to get free-to-air football on TV. And I know Sky have got to fill their coverage, but until crowds are back in, they're going to have more Premier League and Championship games than ever. So for this season, it seemed like a good time to trial that. And who knows, maybe it will happen with the crowds not being back in full anyway, but we'll wait and see. We're not going to make anyone available because we've got another European game in midweek, and we're back for Leicester today following the international break. So we'll have a look at the table before and after. Thank you again to people popping along. There's loads coming in. Thank you for your support. We're getting close to our regular number of concurrent views. So thank you for joining in. The chat's really active. It's absolutely great to see. So thank you for popping in. It's a big week for the channel. The Macclesfield save's just started. We've got the most bizarre goal we conceded in the head coach today. And this Friday with Dorking Wanderers, which I'll be recording after this, we've got the biggest defining moment of the series 16 years in. So that's going to be really important. I don't know how it's going to go, but we'll wait and see. And I did mention earlier, for those who have just popped in, once the head coach finishes, once we win the Champions League with Barcelona, I'm already halfway through the first season of a new series. We're heading over to Northern Ireland, which is one of my favourite leagues to watch. And while we're on the subject of free-to-air football, I'd encourage anyone to check it out. So on BBC Sport Northern Ireland, which you can watch for free on Sky, Freesat, BBC iPlayer, they show coverage of 10 Northern Irish Premier League games a year and loads of cup ties as well. BBC Scotland shows the Scottish Cup nearly every round through and the final. The coverage is brilliant. Northern Irish football is end-to-end, like the National League really. End-to-end stuff, similar standard players, and it's just brilliant to watch. There's never a 0-0. It's blood and thunder. And I've sort of fallen in love with it the last couple of years. Charlie, the podcast host, has got me into it. His wife's Northern Irish. Their family support Ballymena. So we've sort of got into it naturally. And actually our podcast has become really respected for our Northern Irish coverage because we talk about it well. We've got good knowledge. And obviously for English fans, that's unusual. So let's get this first 11 sorted. I've just replaced it because there's a couple who weren't quite fit. So we'll try and get those who are most adequate and most fit for this match. We're going away to Leicester, who are above us in 6th place. We're 8th, but it's all getting quite tight up there. So let me just pick this line up and I'll catch up with the chat again. Please do keep getting your comments in. It's really been brilliant to talk football this morning. We're all getting excited for the new season. We were talking about the Carabao Cup draw earlier. Luton have got a great draw at home to Norwich. It's a shame we probably won't be able to go to it, but it'd be a brilliant one for them. Probably the biggest draw you could have got at this stage. Owen Edmonds in on the left. He's improving star rating wise actually. I don't know if it's just because the squad has got weaker technically. Is Vaughan 100%? He is. So the ones that are struggling are Bartle and Matas. Normally we'd start Bartle. Oh, let's just do it. Do you know what? We've got Thursday night. We can rest people. Vinicius Xavier is 100% and Harrott is 102. So I think actually after all that we've ended up with the same 11. Good logic there from us. We'll probably end up with the same bench as well because there's only so much you can do when you know your strongest 18. And that's the biggest positive at the moment. We know our strongest team. In we go to the Leicester game. So let me catch up with the chat a bit. What happened to Jack Leach? So I think he had a little injury. I don't think he's actually our best bowler, spin bowler, to be honest. He's obviously a hero because of that Headingley test. But I do think he's probably behind both Moeen Ali and Bess in the pecking order. But again, he's got batting resilience, which is unusual in our test team. As we get into the first half of the Leicester match. Mum and Dad are up for the weekend. Thought we'd do a day trip and show them the journey. Absolutely. I mean, I'd love to know what if you actually stop off and get off at Settle and you go into the village. Let me know what it's like. If anyone's been to Settle as well. Because we were on that train journey from Leeds to Carlisle. And I just saw Settle and went, I'd love to live here. It's surrounded by the hills and the dales, which is brilliant. It's a quiet place. It's calm. It's still got all of the things you need. It's big enough and built up enough that you've got your shops, your pubs and whatever. It's a hop on a train to Leeds. It's my sort of place. I like a quiet, easy life. And obviously not a million miles from Leeds or Harrogate for football. As Balogun's in 1-on-1. Oh, he took too long. Should have probably scored there with a minute on the clock. Charlie Betts, the Northern Ireland European Cup ties are free on BBC. Linfield are playing Legia Warsaw today. Are they free to air? Are they showing them on there? I normally have a quick look to see which ones are being shown on TV, but I didn't see that one on there. Let me go and have a quick look. I know S4C show some of the Welsh ties. Oh yeah, the BBC Sport website is showing Linfield v Legia Warsaw, 6 o'clock today. Brilliant. I appreciate that, Charlie. I was thinking there was going to be no football for me this evening. I mean, they'll probably lose, unfortunately, because Legia Warsaw are a very good professional side in Poland, sorry. So I'll probably get quite a lot of interest over here. So obviously we have a high Polish population in Luton particularly. Half an hour in, no shots on target for either side. You've got to feel for the fans here. County, and I forgot the team. Think it's Altrincham who have won promotion. Think they're in Manchester. So Stockport's not far away. Stockport are a brilliant side. 1-on-1 I've got a soft spot for. And again, National League, they'll be one competing for atmosphere once they get the fans back. As we've conceded to Leicester, it is the first shot on target of the match. But Leicester have taken their chances. You've got to give them that. So we're going to demand more. We'll drop to balanced. And we'll try and get something out of this as we get into half-time. But yeah, Altrincham again, a good little club down there. They've been running professionally the last couple of years and it's paid off. They beat York in the playoffs as well in the semis. Glentoran and Coleraine are free on the BBC on Thursday in the Europa League. That's fantastic. That's what we like to see. I love Northern Irish football, so it's good to get those. None of those sides are the ones we're going to be managing in FM20 though. It is Cliftonville we're starting with. And that will start as soon as the head coach finishes. We've recorded half a season and it's going to have twists and turns, let's put it that way. But the aim is to become the 4th professional club in Northern Ireland, to take them into Europe. With the Europa Conference and Europa League, it's probably never been a better chance to get into group stages. And hopefully we can bring the likes of Linfield and Glentoran, who are the bigger clubs, along with us. As Emil Smith rose in on the left for Leicester. Header just over the bar. Hour gone. This has been a really poor display. We're going to go back to positive and we're going to make early changes. Bartle's struggling, so Matas on for him. Lowry will come on for Vaughan, who's just hit a snag in his patch, in his confidence really. Inside forward on attack. And Balogun's looking anxious as well. That's unusual. I'm going to leave him on because we need a goal scorer. I'm going to replace Ruthven, who's on a yellow, with Wimmer because he's a slightly more attacking fullback by trade. So they're the changes we'll make for now. And let's get back into the action. Carl, I could have done with the way to Blackpool to go on a pleasure beach as well. I'll be honest, if you can do that, you've got more confidence than me. Any busy built-up seaside place, I am not touching with a barge pole this year. I'll be going next in January or February when it's freezing, when no one else will be there. That's when I want to go to the beach. And even then, I'll probably go to a slightly quieter place. Can't be dealing with the thousands on the beach at the moment. When working in the NHS as well, it's quite difficult to see, but I'm not going to get involved in that today. Ramirez on the left as Lowry's been robbed in possession and he's brought him back and fouled him. That is the most cynical foul I think I've ever seen. So let's go attacking. We are getting back into it, but if we get to 15 to go and there's nothing really happening, I think we try and push forward. We'll go attacking. We'll run at the defence more, be more expressive. We can distribute to the fullbacks as well. And we've got the higher defensive line. So hopefully that will garner some attacks at least. 5 more minutes to go. It's not going to happen, is it? I mean, Leicester one of the better sides at home. We'll chuck very attacking on for the last 2 minutes, but it is a 1-0 defeat. Leicester just about the better side. The assistant's still happy, so suggests that Leicester will be up there this year. And where did they finish last season? Because they were the side who won the Europa League 2 a couple of years back. And they finished 7th just behind us, so they are a good side. Unfortunately, we don't get anything out of it. So it's on to the Europa League 2. And I think that's our main route into Europe this year. Dren, welcome along. Good to have you in again. I've seen you a couple of times here before. Thank you for getting involved. Where will Luton finish this season in your opinion? So I hinted about this last week and there's not really been much change to the subject. We have signed Jordan Clark since, which is a good attacking signing. If we can tie down the fun and get in the 2 defensive loanees we had last year, which were James Bree at right back and at centre-half Cameron Carter-Vickers. If we can get them back to the club, I believe we'll stay up comfortably. Sort of 17th, 18th, which would be a brilliant season. If we don't sign them, or people of sort of similar ilk, similar quality, and similar types of players in their position, I think it'll be a struggle again. I think we'll be battling. Sheffield Wednesday are obviously starting on -12. There will be 1 or 2 other clubs that end up in that position. Luton won't be one of them because they're run sustainably. And the same for Wickham coming up. I think they'll probably have a good chance as a result as well. And they've just signed a centre forward too. So I think we'll probably stay up because I'm confident we'll get those 2 in. However, if we don't, I realise it'll be a struggle. Who do you think England's right back should be? I think it should be Trent. Oh, by a million miles. Trent Alexander-Arnold right back. I mean, I think England should have stuck with the back 3 they were playing in the World Cup, to be honest. I think we look better in that shape. Better defensively, certainly. And I don't think our defence has really improved since then. We haven't got a better left back than Chilwell, who is good, but not quite the finished article. Harry Maguire, again, a brilliant threat in the air, but not world class. A very good centre-half, not top class. Hasn't really got a top class partner. I know Michael Keane has often been the chosen partner. For me, I know the way they want to play, but if you pick the best defender, it would be Chris Smalling. He's proved that at Roma. And if Newcastle sign him off United, that's genius from Steve Bruce. I'm sorry, it'd be a wonderful signing. Danny Rose and Chris Smalling, brilliant signings for Newcastle if they can get them. Just seeing if there's any youngsters in here that are well rated. Not really. But right back, Trent first choice. If we were playing a back 3, I'd have Walker as the 3rd centre-half like the World Cup. And then Trent on the right wing-back area. Wan-Bissaka's an able deputy. If he was a left-back, he'd probably be first choice. It's just unfortunate, really. Trippier is still a very good player. Had a good season at Atletico Madrid. But I don't think, unfortunately, players who aren't in the Premier League seem to get overlooked a bit. But yeah, that's my opinion on it. Let's skip ahead to Thursday night. We've got a big Europa League 2 game coming up. We've nearly reached the hour mark now. Apologies that we did start slightly late this morning as well. We did have a few internet issues as we were trying to get live, but we are up and running and everything seems to be smooth at the moment. So we're into our third Europa League 2 game, and this one's probably the most important in the grand scheme of the group. Because as it is, we've managed to get through the first 2 games with 4 points. We've played the side that should be top of the pyramid at the end, which is Rio Ave, and we've played against the side who should be bottom in Rapid Vienna. So in this game, if we don't get a result, particularly away from home, we're probably going to put ourselves in a spot of bother. However, we're still going to change our 11 and we're still going to try and get the best result. So Grondona will come back in goal, Garner at right back, Fabio, Frutoso and Wimmer the rest of the back 4. I'm tempted to switch the fullbacks again. Who have we got in the league at the weekend? Brentford at home. So we'll have Wimmer for the weekend and Ruthven today. More defensive minded on the road. In midfield, we have got Matas, we have got Phil Richards, we have got Nathan Mullen, the midfield 3. In the wide areas, we will have Davis, and on the left is Dwight McNeil, and up front will be Leon Lowry, who's found another one of these little goal droughts, hasn't he? Scored against Newcastle, brilliant goal it was as well, but then 2 games without. On the bench, same again, all the ones who didn't feature. Andy May, Tim Preaker, Carl Whitehouse, Marcus Vinicius, Shahed, Ross Marsh, and in one defensive change, which can be Wimmer. That's our 11 and 18. We need at least a point out of this. Charlie, controversially, I think that the job that Steve Bruce is doing at Newcastle is massively underrated. I agree. I completely agree with you, Charlie. He's playing a similar style to Benitez, and the reason he's playing that similar style is because that's the type of players Newcastle have got. They've got a brilliant defensive squad, very solid, but they haven't got many quality attackers. Maximan's a good signing, but inconsistent. Almiron, moments of magic, inconsistent. Joel Linton's a good striker. He's not benefiting because of the way they're having to play. However, I think next year, if they can get that more solid defence, even more solid, so Lascelles, if he can then be partnered, instead of by a Fernandez or a Shah who likes to go forward, they could be joined by Chris Smalling and then Danny Rose at left back. I think you can afford to put that maybe one extra more attacking midfielder into the squad, or attack minded. Shelby's obviously got a great passing range, but if you could put a sort of box to box player in there, that would help. The Longstaffs will get better, of course, if they both stay. So there is potential, and Maximan will improve in his second season. So it's just having a few more of those. So when Maximan's got a knock or Almiron's struggling for form, they haven't got another option going forward. So they do need 1 or 2 of those. And then I think Steve Bruce could potentially get them to the top half. I know there's disappointment about the takeover. And I don't know if you saw the news, Michael Chopra's trying to lead one now, which is interesting. But either way, I think it'll be a decent season again for them. And of course, the size of the club, the fans, they do deserve better. It's a brilliant place. But at the moment, Steve Bruce is doing a decent job with the resources he has. Ruthven into the box. Header from Davis. Oh, what a player he's turned out to be. We signed him just because he was homegrown at the club, and he's becoming a bit of a hero. Thank you to everyone who's joining along. Great to see some more new faces as well. If you haven't yet, please do chuck a thumbs up on it. I do really appreciate your support, and it does help people find us and draw more attention to the stream. And we'd love to make this community bigger and better. So if you are new along or you haven't already, please chuck a thumbs up on the video. If you're new to the channel, welcome along. Silkman Till I Die, thanks for popping in. I've seen you over on the Macclesfield Save a couple of times. Is there a chance you'll carry on the series if a new owner takes over? Potentially, yes. The maximum I do with them is 2 years, because as I've mentioned earlier in the stream, I've already pre-prepared a save to take over from the head coach. And it was always intended to be a mini-series. But for Macclesfield, if we get a tycoon owner, which is very unlikely, if we go into administration and we just about stay up, but things are still teetering on the edge, I'll probably carry on. If we just get a new owner and stay up comfortably, probably not, to be honest. If we get relegated, we'll get sacked anyway, so it'll be irrelevant. But if we get one of those 2 scenarios where the takeover makes things really interesting, then we can pump in resources and challenge for promotion, then yes. Davis is in again. Johnny Davis has scored 2. He is such an average footballer, but he can dribble and he's got pace. And he is turning into a superstar for us here. What a goal, Johnny Davis. 2-0, and we should be getting through in this group. But yeah, if Macclesfield are teetering on the edge financially still, or we get the takeover and are in a really good position, yes. potentially a second season. Of course, it does rely on there still being interest. The views for the watch time for the first 3 have been great. So if that remains the case, obviously we'll consider it as well. But for a short-term series, if it just goes as we expect, then probably not. But I wouldn't rule it out just yet. L Gaming, my England team would be Henderson in goal. That I completely agree with. So I think Pickford will still go through to the World Cup now. But I think after that, Henderson will be number 1. And let's be honest, if Henderson comes back as Man United's number 1, by trade, that naturally means he becomes England's number 1. Because that's always how the England teams worked. And I think he will. I would cash in on De Gea. Although I have got to say, United in the 2 semi-finals, they've dropped Romero, who's done brilliantly through the cup runs, and he's a very good keeper, for De Gea. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think we've probably given away a penalty here. Let's just see the VAR for if it's out or in the box, and then we'll go back to the chat. It's Liam Garner who's committed the foul. Please be a free kick. Please be a free kick. It is a free kick. So now, after cheering for that, I've got to make sure we don't concede it, because that would be a bit of a kick in the teeth. So it is Roberts who's going to take it from the left-hand side. Good header through Tozo. Good volley, Ruthven. Long to Lowry, and we could nick a third from this. Leon Lowry down the left, challenged easily. But it has been complete dominance so far for Burnley. A really good display. So who have you put there? Trent, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Gomez, Chilwell back 5. Yeah, Gomez should be first choice. That's a good point. I missed him out. I would pick Kyle Walker at centre-half over Wan-Bissaka, to be honest. Kyle Walker is... I still think he's underrated. I know he's done some silly things. If we've gone 3-0 up, Dwight McNeil with the goal. But I do think Kyle Walker's slightly underrated. Then Henderson, I'm not sure who I'd have in centre midfield with him. And then Sancho, Kane, Rashford. Definitely Raheem Sterling. He's such an underrated footballer. I know he missed that stupid goal in the week. I would actually have Sterling over Rashford, to be honest with you. I would have Sterling, Sancho, Kane as my front 3. Maybe even have 4 of them if he wants to have one holding midfielder. But for Henderson, I don't know who his partner would be in my book. It's the one position, as you say, they're not really certain of. You could have a more defensive option in the likes of Dyer, who can then just sit in front against a big team. And he's always done okay for England, Eric Dyer. But in midfield, I don't know. Maybe a Mason Mount if you want to be a bit more aggressive against lower opposition. But again, he's still young and inconsistent. There are some good ones coming through. Dwight McNeil, who we've got here coming through at Burnley, he's going to be close soon. But obviously he's more of a wide man. I don't know who would be my second man in the middle. It's the one really difficult position. There are some good players at various clubs. But they're all very similar and it's hard to choose between them. As Davis is coming down the right-hand side, challenged easily this time. But at 3-0, we can afford to relax a little bit. Silkman, that sounds good. I just wanted to say I'll watch you a lot more on FM21 because I watched the majority of the Part the Furniture series, but I wasn't really feeling a wandering dog. That's absolutely fine. I mean, we pick clubs each year based on stories that interest us, and that's always the main thing. My content will be more consistent and enjoyable because I've picked a save that I know I'll enjoy for the whole year. I don't expect everyone to. I don't, as much as I'd love it to, I don't do this content just to get views. Because if I did that, I would do experiments. I would manage one of the big 4 in the beta. And it would get more views, more subscribers. But then those people wouldn't stick along for the stories. And that's what I've always loved doing on FM. I've always done long-term stories. So just to get more views on YouTube, I'm not going to change from that. So if you're feeling one and then not the other, it's not a problem at all. The head coach will always be the mainstay on this series. It's a series I like doing. We'll have odd years where we do it as a live stream or we do it as a different type of the year. We do it in a slightly different style, in a different place in the world. But that's always going to be one of my mainstays because that's a series I enjoy doing. It's unique to the channel. I don't think anyone had done it before. But otherwise, each year we sort of pick one club for a long club story and one club for a live stream. And then there'll always be little mini ones in between. Macclesfield obviously worked well for you. Next year, the one club series is almost certain to be Hitchin Town. It will either be the live stream series or the one club story. Hitchin Town will feature on the channel. It's one of my most local clubs. They're a step below the National League North and South, so I want to have that test too. And I want to put some more rules on it, rather than it just being a complete, you can sign anyone apart from the player search screen. I'd like it to have that sort of unique touch to it with maybe a Homegrown Academy challenge, only under 18s, free agents. Maybe only signing players for free even when we go up the leagues. Maybe only signing players that are scouted, or maybe only signing players that the director of football recommends. We can have all sorts of different play arounds with it. So there's certainly interest to be had there. Let me just make these changes quickly. Dwight McNeil can have a rest. Carl Whitehouse on. Andy May can come on for Johnny Davis, who's tired. I know he'll be upset because he's on a hat-trick. But Andy May on up front. We'll give him a chance as well. 15 to go. We're 4-0 up. Lowry scored as well. We can completely relax. I'll try and watch the head coach series. I appreciate it. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, Silkman, and I'll be completely honest here. The start of my FM20 content is probably the worst content I've made the first sort of 6 or 7 seasons, because I was rushing. I was snowed under at work in the day job. Obviously, the NHS winter wasn't great, and then we had the start of the pandemic. And I hadn't really found my style. It was still new on the channel, really. And sort of from about April onwards, I started live streaming. I started to find my comfort zone, realising that there can be gaps, that I can talk in a normal voice. I don't have to broadcast it, try and, manufacture excitement. I didn't have to do that. And I feel comfortable. I feel relaxed, like I'm talking to my mates in the pub when I do this now, which is exactly what I'd want. So I'm hoping that's reflected. It seems to be, because I'm growing subscribers at a quicker rate than I was when FM was new, which is very unusual. Obviously, the live streams have been an overwhelming success. So I kind of understand why I didn't have that big growth at the start of FM20, because I cringe when I go back and watch the videos now. But from about season 8 of the head coach and season 10 of Dorking, I feel comfortable. We've got face cam. It's allowed me to relax a bit more. I'm live streaming, which is relaxing. Allows me to talk to the people live and realise that you guys are supporting me and enjoying the content either way. So for me, that's been a game changer. Live streaming has changed the game. I forgot about Sterling. Yeah, Sterling's a top. He's probably our best attacker with Kane. Him and Kane are the best two. Maybe Mount or Dyer. That's all I can think of. Declan Rice. Yeah, he's going to become a favourite by the looks. Do you know what? To be honest, if we're going to play a back three, long term, I would have Declan Rice in there. Because Carl Walker's one of the older ones in there. I think Declan Rice, I mean, he was naturally a centre-half coming through anyway. He's got the ball-playing skills. Sort of like a David Luiz, maybe, in the middle of a back three. I think he could be a superstar. But with Maguire on one of the sides, hasn't really got the legs. So either Dyer or Rice could step into the middle of a back three too. We've got ourselves in pole position for the Europa League 2, which is brilliant. We've got through the international break and all is going well. So let's run through the press conference. One other side note very quickly. A couple have commented, with the new desk, the only difference that's a slight hindrance, it's not a big issue, but a slight hindrance, is the mouse is closer to the microphone. So you get a few more clicks occasionally, but it's a small price to pay for comfort, a better layout, and the fact that we're able to work professionally now. So thank you for your support with that. I did do a community desk post about the desk. The fact that the ad revenue that since we've monetised has funded the webcam and now the desk. So I'm reinvesting it all back into the channel to try and make it better. The only things we've got to go are lighting and then a second screen for the live stream, so I can answer you a bit quicker, hopefully. We've got 2 more games that we're going to play today, I think. We'll see if we can get through to the Hapoel game, but I think that might be cutting it a bit, because after that there's a big international break. So I might take the unprecedented thing, because we're already through in the Europa League 2 essentially. I might just play the Hapoel game off camera and then come back after the international break. So we haven't got a 2.5 week gap at the start of next week. Number of viewers, we have reached the joint record high again. Thank you so much for everyone coming along. Please do chuck a thumbs up on if you haven't already. Please do subscribe if you're new along. And if you haven't been here before, come and get involved in a chat. It's good fun. Silkman, L Gaming Wrexham have just signed Ellie and Durrell. He'll be a quality view. Yeah, we talked a little bit about him at the start of the stream. Starting to sign some good players. Non-league now, where it's sort of been confirmed that it's almost certain crowds are going to be allowed back in some form from step 3 down. That's allowed the non-league clubs to release players in the knowledge that they'll be able to get clubs. And then equally then the National League clubs are able to sign players because the EFL have got certainty. The only thing we don't know yet is the start date for the National Leagues, unfortunately. So that's all looking good. We're starting to see a bit more movement. As I said as I'll say in episode 4 and 5 of Macclesfield, because obviously the 2nd and 3rd were recorded before the decision. I really do worry about Macclesfield this year. I'd love to get your thoughts on it, Silkman, if you're still in here. Because financially, we've been there with Luton with the -30. You have to worry about, if you haven't got a good owner in place, are you going to have a club? And it's a horrible thing to say, but I just hope you've got a team to support all of next season. It doesn't matter if, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter if you finish bottom of the league. If you've got a team to support, and at the end of it, you've got a financially sustainable club, even if that means you have to rebuild from the National League North with a young side, it's better than what's happened to Bury, isn't it? And the same with Bolton. They had to go to League 2, get a solid owner in. The same with Luton. We knew we got minus 30. We got good owners in who support the club, and we've managed to rebuild, and look where we are now. The same's happened with Chester, with other clubs. I mean, Wrexham have gone down to the National League as well, again with financial problems in the past. So the National League, they're the only ones that have got only a provisional start date because of this uncertainty around crowds at that level. So the EFL have confirmed they're going to be starting behind closed doors. The date is as such, and the Carabao Cup starts next Saturday, the 29th, the same day as the Community Shield. Then we've got the Step 3 and below, where crowds will be back in from September, and they're looking at starting at September the 5th now, which they'll chalk in. And they've got the FA Cup and VAR start dates as well. But the National League, they had a provisional of October the 5th, or October, the first week of October, because they were looking at starting when crowds could come back. But obviously there's not really been any news from the government as to what's going to happen with that. Andy, hi Daniel, first time in a live stream for a while. Always watch the content. Just wanted to say keep up the good work. Thank you. Messages like that, and so many of you have been great in comments of videos, in live streams, just to say that you're enjoying it. And it means such an amount. At the moment, for a year and a half, we were doing 30 hours a week of making content for nothing, and now probably about £10 a month, which we're then reinvesting into the channel. I'll always be honest with what we're doing, why we're doing it, if I need to monetize things, and how it's going to work. As I've said from the start, I'd love to make this part of my job in the future. I'll always want to work in the NHS still do the little bit part-time. But long term, particularly after this year, it's taught me that working full-time in there for 50 years isn't going to be sustainable. So hopefully we can make it part of our job in the future. But I really do appreciate messages like that. I've seen you in the comments to loads of videos, so thank you so much for your support. Please do chuck a thumbs up on this. I hope you enjoy the streams when you're able to pop in. I say it every week. I know Tuesday morning is not the most ideal time, but unfortunately, of the 3-member management team I'm in at work, I'm the most junior. So the other 2 get their choice of day off, and they pick the start and end of the week. So no problems with that. Tuesday's a good day. You can get cheap shopping slots. There's benefits to it as well. And it's a good chance to do all the interviews for the podcast too. So it's really nice to be able to live stream on a Tuesday morning, just to do it every week consistently, and to have so many of you here watching means a lot. So I really do appreciate it. And the chat gets more active each week. I said earlier there were a few less of you here. The last 4 live streams have had over 40 views live, and I've had over 75 overall, which is absolutely incredible for a channel my size. It's basically 1 in 15 of my subscriber base is watching a live stream, and based on the watch time, watching at least 20-30 minutes of it, which is incredible. So I'll never take that for granted. I do appreciate it. I will get back to the chat in a second. Let me just get this lineup sorted. I don't know whether to bring Lowry in, because he ended his goal drought. Vaughan's been in pretty dodgy form, actually, the last 3 games. Although, to be fair, 2 of them were 6.7. They weren't disastrous. And he scored away at Villa, or got an assist. So at home to Brentford, let's give him a chance. And actually, I'll push him further forward. Whether it's Lowry or Vaughan, we'll go for that now. In the middle, we'll go back to our normal 2. Bartle struggling for confidence a bit. And Vinicius Xavier. And don't forget, if we get big offers for Flauhaut, who's wanted, Balogun, or Vinicius Xavier, we might have to sell them in January. They're the only 3 left who don't meet the homegrown quota. And there's big clubs after Flauhaut. So if we can get sort of 50, 60 million, could well be a deal for us. Number 10 will be Ashley Harrott. And up front will be... I'm just seeing actually, can Bartle or Matas play number 10 naturally? It's a bit of a shame really, because they would be ideal as our 3. Harrott will be in the number 10 role. Up front is going to be Balogun. And then the bench, we've got to pick the ones who are fit. So Ruthven, Fabio, Matas, Leon Lowry is fit. Nathan Mullen's not. McNeil, Andy May. And who's the other one we normally pick? Phil Richards is injured, isn't he? So let's go for Davis, because if he's fit, he was brilliant in midweek, and he's homegrown at the club, and he's more experienced, so he deserves the chance. There's the lineup for today. At home to Brentford, The penultimate game of the day, we probably need to win. Let me just catch up with the chat. Well, there were rumours of one of the directors from Birmingham City trying to buy us, but the main buyer, Les Seeley's son, said if we were relegated, he would pull out. Yeah, I knew a little bit about that, because obviously the Seeleys have got a little connection to Luton Town as well. I guess my issue is, based on the way Birmingham have been going, the dodgy stadium deal, the financial fair play failures in the past, I wouldn't really recommend taking ownership from one of them is going to be a deal. And it's hard, isn't it? Macclesfield have lost the majority of their EFL income. It's happened at the last minute, so you probably can't rebuild for the season. I think I saw it the other day. You had 6 players contracted on the books at the minute. And it's so hard to work like that. You're not the team like a Bolton who have got the luxury of an academy with 15 high-quality players in. It's going to be a really worrying start to the season, but I hope you get through it, and I hope there's still a club at the end. Hopefully, in the area you are, it's only a jump on the train from the likes of... Well, it's on that Milton Keynes to Manchester route with the likes of Stoke and Stockport and things like that. So hopefully, they'll lend you some young players. They can get their game time, pay their wages, and you'll be able to get through. That's my main hope. Emberton on the left-hand side for Brentford. They've started well here. Oh, Vimmer, that's a risky tackle. Got away with it, though. And they've got Jonathan Lecco up front. Hero of the podcast's mini-series for us. We did a little network save, and Jonathan Lecco was my hero in that. L Gaming, the reason Wrexham are so low is the owners before they tried to take down our stadium. So, yeah. And that's the thing, is so many clubs in the EFL now, the dodgy deal is they're selling the stadium to the owners on a loan. And you can't recover that afterwards. It's such a poor situation. So Luton themselves, we had troubles with the training ground, and then we were training out of a porter cabin. Thankfully now we've managed to buy a great facility which has got 4G pitches, community facilities, gym facilities. It's our own. It's one of the best ones in the region, which is great. We're obviously have got planning permission for the new stadium. Sunday Balogun puts us ahead. His mini goal drought over. So everything's looking good at Luton, but it took 11 years to rebuild. It wasn't overnight. Oldest international stadium in the world. Correct, fact, I believe. Silkman, how do you make money from YouTube? Because I thought the only way of making money was to get to 1k subs and 3 hours of watch time. You can't add some videos of less than 10 minutes. Yeah, so on this channel, that was the case. So for a year and a half, I didn't earn anything. In December of last year, I reached 1,000 subscribers. I get, thanks to you guys and the amount you watch the videos, I get well more than 400 hours of watch time over a 12-month period. So I'd already had about 1,500, 1,600, possibly more actually. So because you guys, lots of YouTubers, they get lots of views on their videos. They get the people, they have Twitter deals where they'll retweet and that, and people will click on and watch for a minute. But they don't, when they come along, they only watch for 30 seconds. So people will get to the subscribers and they'll do the sub for sub deals, but they'll never then get 400 watch hours. So for me, although I had a fairly low subscriber count for a long time, I was way above the watch time for probably about 7 or 8 months before I got to 1,000. So as soon as I did, I applied for the programme, got accepted pretty much immediately because it was a quieter time of the year. And then you just have to choose where you place your adverts. So YouTube do the automatic ones in the middle. But for me, I just have one at the start. And then if YouTube puts more than one in the middle, I'll normally take the rest out. For a new series, unfortunately, I have to chuck 2 in because they're the videos that get the most time. And my promise at the moment, because I don't need the financial side, is I use it to reinvest. So since December, we've got the webcam. We've now got the desk as well. We'll get the second screen and the lighting sorted. And then hopefully, I can start to be honest and say, let's try and make this part of my job. If it coincides with FM21, great. I mean, I've already said before, people have mentioned about would you start a Patreon and YouTube memberships. I'd like to avoid it for now because I don't believe until April my content was good enough to deserve it. And now that I hopefully think it is, I don't want to do it straight away. I want to do it when I need to do it. And I don't need to at the moment, so I don't want to do that because it's not the main motivation. So yeah, I don't earn much. The only thing I get is little bits of ad revenue, and it is tiny. So it works out on average about £10 a month at the moment. So that's the honest truth of it. I will do a little thing each year when I do the end of year channel review to show you what the ad revenue's like. Obviously, it boosts the month FM20 came out, or it will boost the first months when FM21 come out. And then as you go through the year, it just gradually dips as less people watch the content, which you would expect with a game like this. It's seasonal. It's great that we're fan owned now, L Gaming. Yeah, that's the thing. The same as Luton, we're owned by a consortium who are fans. Nick Owen led it to start with as the chairman. Got people on board, a famous face who was a Luton fan, and then Gary Sweet behind the scenes who had been in the supporters trust before, and he involves the fans in everything. He's open, he's transparent. We're so lucky to have it, and any club who's fan owned, it's brilliant. There are a fair few that have done that, and it's the best thing you can ask for, really. Let me make some changes. Edmund's replaced by McNeil. Jack Vaughan will be replaced by Leon Lowry, who has got his assist today, Jack Vaughan, and had a decent game, but we'll still replace him. And then Vinicius Xavier replaced by Matas, and we'll switch him with Bartle. 15 minutes to go. While it's 1-0, anything can happen. Let's hope we can get a second with Balogun here. Crossing in to Simpson, and it's in. The keeper's made a mistake. Oh, the flag's up. VAR are getting rid of it. That's a bit of a shame. Let's have a look at the next one. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind on the chat today. It's great to have it so active. And once we get the second screen, I can see it at the same time. But at the moment, I have to switch between FM to then come and see it. So that's one of the minor inconveniences. But hopefully that won't be long. L Gaming, I wish the Silkman Supporters Trust could buy the club. They don't have much money, but you only have one player contracted. Your website still said 6, and most of them are featuring in my save. So I'll be interested to know which ones weren't. As Balogun has wrapped up a second there, do you know who the player is who's contracted? Silkman. Oh God, I hope to sort it out soon. I respect Macclesfield a lot. Yeah, they're a good club, Macclesfield. It's one of the ones I was looking forward to going to on the 92 because it's such an easy one to get to. But unfortunately, with Stevenage being so local, there was never going to be a win for me down there. But if non-league football comes back first, at least you can get people in the gate quicker, which would be ideal. A comfortable 2-0 win over Brentford. A good result there. And we've just got the Everton game to come, which will be the last one of the morning. I'll play Hapoel off camera, and I'll come back after the international break next week. Fingers crossed, we'll still be competing for Europe. But I think this season, looking at the course of the stream save, we have to prioritise the Europa League too. And that's something I'd like to do more next year as well as stream. But obviously to do that, I'd probably have to have 2 days off work in the week, which at the moment isn't feasible financially. So at the moment, still 5 days, but 1 weekday off. And we did a Macclesfield podcast actually on the Football Podcast channel. It seemed to get a bit of interest from Macclesfield fans because we try not to sort of be the headline grabbing controversial clickbait stuff. We sort of present the facts of a situation, give a minor opinion on it, but focus on the bigger picture rather than the individuals. We're not one of those to go, let's slag off this club, let's slate them all day. They've got enough going on. We don't want to see people losing their jobs who are working in football clubs. We don't want to see football clubs going out of business. L Gaming, I've read that one already. Silkman, yeah, I still remember that match in the snow that was on TV, 17-18. That National League coverage, brilliant. We talked a bit about that earlier on. I think it was Carl who was talking about it. We really loved the National League coverage then. We had one with Luton and Barnet. I think it was the year we got promoted. Edgar Davids was in charge of Barnet. And it became a mud bath. I mean, how the game didn't get called off, I don't know. The Luton players were sort of coercing the referee into carrying on. Because it got to about the hour mark. The ref had carried on when he shouldn't have already. And then the Luton players were saying, well, you've got to the hour now. You've got to carry it on. And we got there in the end and managed to win it. And it was crucial. It was brilliant coverage, though. I watched it on TV before I started going to the away games. Yeah, there's so many. It's non-league football at its finest. You get so many things that you would never see elsewhere, and that's what I absolutely love about it. It was really close game till the snow came. Then you scored 3. Silkman, it's quite annoying to see Loki Doki and Leluja grow so much, and your content is just the same. It's quite irritating to see from the viewer's perspective. What's your take on it? So look, I'm not annoyed by it. To be honest, if it wasn't for Leluja, he did a how-to series on how to start a Football Manager channel. I would never have done it if it wasn't for that. And Loki featured in it. For Leluja as well, he's the first person I ever watched on here. I think his content's brilliant. I loved the Nanit and save in FM18. FM17 was the head coach, the first one I watched. Not the head coach. That's my non-league to legend, was the first one I watched. And it's brilliant. He's sort of moved it into the real footballing world a little bit, which is great. And they deserve the growth they get. They've brought along a subscriber base. They've helped them grow. The difficulty is on YouTube now is the algorithm supports bigger YouTubers a little bit more. So it means that even if they put out, say, a poor series, they would get bigger support on it. But generally, their content's great. They deserve the growth. I appreciate my content's probably now, since April, at a more similar standard. Prior to that, it wasn't. So I'll never argue that. Until April, my content wasn't competing with theirs. I'm not able to live stream as much because they've got to the stage where it's a real job. They can put out more content, and more content means more growth. If you don't have to wait 2 or 3 days for the next episode in a series, and you can see it every day, you know you're going to get it at the same time, it gives you that continuation. Like one of the soaps on TV, you know it's coming every single day, so you don't have to worry about it. So it's never something that's worried me. At the moment, I'm not worried about how big the channel is, how much money I'm earning or whatever. And I'm sure one day I'll be in that position where I'm growing more quickly, and there's someone in my position now who's got content that's as good, and they'll be frustrated. I guess the one big difference at the moment is I can't afford the tools to make the snazzy intros and things like that, which is the big difference at the moment. They can hook people in 10 seconds. Like the intro to Kev's Born series this year was unbelievable. It was a really brilliant, like, it's what I'd love to do, a little animated intro. So Macclesfield was sort of my first step to that, but I can only afford the free app that does the slide one, so it won't be quite the same standard. But either way, it's a step in the right direction for me. The thumbnails, I've changed them throughout the year and tried to improve them. The head coach is the only one I haven't done yet. So I think gradually we will get there, but there's always a reason for it. It's not just because my content's the same and I'm unlucky. There are areas where they're far better still. So I'll never shy away from that. And they've built up a base. They've worked hard over years to do that. So no arguments from me. And to be fair, a lot of my views still come from people who have watched the early episodes of the big YouTubers and then they click on me in the recommendations. So without that, when they don't release content early in an FM cycle, I probably lose views to what I would if they were making it. So as a small YouTuber, I think you have to embrace the bigger ones. And there's, like anyone, there's some that I love, there's some that I don't really like in terms of their content, but each to their own. No real concerns. We've just lost Balogun and Flauhaut to injury, which is going to be a problem for this Everton game. Scott Wilson was quality in that game. Fast Kelleher, he's the one player you've got signed on. So he's a star in the save, as you know, with Macclesfield. It's one of our centre-half partnership. Captain and easily League One quality. And that's the problem. If you get to the situation where perhaps administrators come in, if you can't get an owner, or you get a new owner and they need to balance the books. Unfortunately, there's no way players like that stay, because he's early 20s, isn't he? He's not an older player. So that's difficult. But it's a shame to see that you've lost most of the others as well. And you've obviously lost the website editor as well, because the other 5 aren't taken off yet. Yeah, Macclesfield away. Hopefully L Gaming at non-league level. I think probably it's more likely that home fans will be allowed back in at a section of capacity. I think for away fans, you're probably going to see not this calendar year that will be allowed to go. Not to games above step 3 anyway. I was going to say Port Vale, the main. So basically everyone on that train line. Port Vale, Crewe, Altrincham and Stockport. I was a Stockport, Chester, Tranmere and Wrexham. Why Tranmere, can I ask L Gaming? Oh, Tranmere and Wrexham fans and Chesterfield fans don't like each other. Oh, sorry, you've answered my question now already. I've got to be honest, on the podcast channel, we sort of adopted Tranmere for a bit of last year because they were brilliant for us. We went to one of their cup ties away at Wickham, who again have been brilliant for us too. And the Tranmere chairman, Mark Palios, the former FA chairman, he just said, come in behind the scenes, I'll come and do an interview with you to help your podcast out. The away fans were brilliant with us. They sort of took us on board. Wickham let us in behind the scenes, gave us an interview in the proper sort of tunnel room with the background with the EFL, what do they call it, the sort of stand with all the advertising on. So those 2 clubs did so much for us. We then went to Tranmere away at Watford in the 3rd round of the Cup. Definitely the best football match I went to last year. Watford 3-0 up the Premier League side. Tranmere came back. I mean, it's still our highest viewed video on the channel. It was absolutely incredible that day. And probably my best day out of football last year, despite following many good days with Luton. The 2 Adams on National League commentary are criminally underrated. Couldn't agree more. So Adam Summit and Steve Bauer before deserves so much credit as well with, ESPN, Setanta and BT. He was brilliant. Obviously does BBC FA Cup games and internationals now. Adam Virgo, always done a solid job. Kevin Davis has started to come in. He does a good job. I think Grant Holt's excellent as well. Chris Hargreaves does some of the games. He's always been solid too. Their coverage is really good. They really do put a lot of work into it. I just wish they could. I wish they could get the EFL coverage, to be honest, because they do so much with it. Even if they separated Championship to League 1 and League 2, and they got League 1 and 2, they would do much with it. But I'd rather see it in free-to-air TV. I'm sort of catching up with the chat now. I agree, you should have more. That's why. I'm just catching up with the comments. Ignore me as I'm babbling to myself. What happened to that right winger? I think his name is Archer. Oh, I don't recognise that name. It wasn't in my save, so Silkman will have to help us with that. I tried to get into Football Manager, but it was so confusing for my time. I thought I'd be better by now. Have you tried to do FM Touch on the full mode? So, as well as FM, you can install FM Touch on the full PC game. I did a Christmas save. It was really poor, so I wouldn't recommend looking at it. But it's sort of, I'd liken it to FM, probably FM 07, 08 without the detail. You don't have to do the team talks. You don't have as many press conferences. All of them are one question. You don't have to worry so much on the training and financial side. So I think that's probably the best bet if you struggle with the full FM. And I normally do like one of the challenges each year. It has the old, I don't know if you're old enough to remember this or you ever played it, the old LMA half-season challenges. It has some of those in, like the Invincibles, the Injury Crisis, etc. So that's sort of a really good one for that. But otherwise, yeah, it is a bit much for some people. It's probably even tough for me at points now. And there are bits of it that I delegate that I would never normally have in the past because there's too much to it. But it's a brilliant game and you can't argue with them. They've made it as realistic as possible. So there's our bench for today. Still not quite back to full strength. Richards out with the knock. Balogun too, and Flauhaut's had to come out. So Fabio in at centre-half. Leon Lowry up front. And that's our 11 for the final game of the morning. Let me make sure I catch up with the chat before we go today. I seen you in the comments in Lelujo's episode once. Are you talking to me there? Because I love Lelujo's content. I get involved in the comments. The other one I like, Golden FM, second yellow cards. They're three of my favourites. I like some of Loki's content, like his Accrington save, which ironically was one of his least well rated. The Accrington save he did was brilliant. And it's a story. He does that sort of side of the content we can't do. His football knowledge is not his selling point, but the story, he had 3 or 4 different characters. He was in fancy dress for half of it. That's incredible. That's something no other YouTuber can really offer, which is why he's so popular. So no problem with that. I loved his Fort William save as well. Did a load of great work in real life. The same as Work the Space this year with Tolor Town. They did such great work for real community football clubs. Especially considering we are probably the hardest job in the top 4 divisions. Yeah, you are, to be fair. I don't really like the Bourne videos. It's not my favourite series, and I think it's a hard thing because it followed particularly Nuneaton, which was possibly the greatest, one of the greatest FM saves on YouTube. And then last year, the home one was really great as well. Got really involved in the community. As Everton have taken the lead, have they? How on earth has that gone in? 3 minutes in, we're behind already. Everton on the front foot, and we're struggling without our first choice centre-half partnership. So yeah, but I always love the non-league to legends. This first few years of that are always great. So I always get involved. I love watching non-league saves, basically, which is why I always end up starting there. The website editor is probably a volunteer. The majority of the sections on the website are from 2012. Unfortunately, that's how a lot of small businesses have to run. Charlie Matt Cecil, what a legend. Yes, Wickham's head of media. Came on and did an interview in the podcast as we've gone 2-0 down. This is a disaster. But yeah, Matt Cecil let us behind the scenes at Wickham. Did an interview with us for the podcast. Helped plug our League One playoff final predictions. Got us an interview with Joe Jacobson, the skipper at Wickham. I mean, he did so much for us. We've got to thank him. We can't thank him enough, to be honest. Fabio heads away to Ashley Harrick. Can we get a goal back? I've dropped a balance out of fear, basically. Hopefully we'll survive at this point. The reason we're rivals with Tranmere is because there was only about 30 minutes around. Yeah, I suppose it's still loose rivalry, isn't it? I guess the thing is Luton's about half an hour from all the London clubs, so I guess it's a bit different for us in that sense. It only just occurred to me that we have to put up with them horrific National League advertising boards again. To be honest, they're poor boards, but it's a good league. It's a good standard of football. Hopefully you'll be able to go back to the games earlier and you'll have good coverage on TV if not. So there are positives to it. But yeah, the advertising board's not the best. Unfortunately, this year, getting to the Championship, we had to change to the electronic ones right in front of my seat because I'm on the front row. So you can't see onto the ground perfectly at Kenilworth Road. They had to sand down all of the old concrete bits behind the ground, in front of the stand, sorry. So that was interesting. We are gradually getting back into this game. We've had more chances now. We're on the front foot, but defensively we look fragile. So I'm not quite sure that we're going to get anything out of this. Also, Port Vale are our rivals as well. Their fans aren't very nice. Well, I guess Port Vale have a main rivalry with Stoke, don't they? But unfortunately, I think the only time they met in the leasing.com trophy, there was a big scene of smashed up toilets and stands and things like that, which you never want to see. That right winger is Archibald. Oh, sorry, yes, Theo Archibald. He's been a bit of a star for us, as we've got one back with Ashley Harrott. Theo Archibald, good player. So he was at Stevenage in my FM19 head coach. So he was one of the only players I'd already heard of, sort of in the football manager world, and knew how good he'd be. And he was brilliant. L Gaming, thanks for coming along. You nearly made it to the end anyway, so no need to worry. We're just finishing off the Everton game, hopefully with a bit of a comeback to come. But thanks for coming along. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. I do appreciate all the regulars as well as all the new ones popping in. Yeah, I mean, I think, Siltman, you make a really good point on how it's run. I mean, it's something we've talked about basically continuously on the podcast when the Wigan situation came up, the Macclesfield one, when League 1 and 2 was ended on points per game and the way it was done. The big thing with the EFL is the structure doesn't work. You've got the clubs voting on decisions, which they're always going to have their best interests at heart. So there has to be a board that makes the majority of decisions that are independent to any of the clubs and make the best decision legally and from a business and balance point of view, rather than what suits the most clubs. Because that's what happened with this points per game and not playing on, etc. However, having said that, at the moment, if you do that, the people who are in charge and directing at the EFL are not fit for purpose. I mean, the fact that the Macclesfield situation has occurred was an FA issue because the takeover was before they came into the league. But the Wigan takeover passed the EFL owners and directors tests, which is probably the worst criminal offence you've ever seen. The story's actually got worse in the last week. To find out that Wigan were talking about insolvency and administration before they took over the new owner. Barnsley were involved as well. I mean, it's absolutely crazy, the fact that that got to that stage. So there's got to be something done at that level, because it is absolutely astonishing that we can get to this stage. We're going to have to make changes at the back, which are not ideal. Fabio to right back, Ruthven to left back, Vimmer centre half. Probably won't work. Jack Vaughan off the right again. Let's give Johnny Davis a go. He had a brilliant game last time. We'll see if we can get the second goal. But yeah, there's got to be change at the EFL, both at the bottom and at the top, because it just hasn't worked out. We're going to drop Davis to wide midfield just so we've got a better shape. We might be 3-1 down at that point because they're in Everton here. There's so much space. And Summerskills had to make a brilliant save there. Yeah, to be honest, National League to League 2. National League's a brilliant league. There's not a great deal between them. So I wouldn't worry about that. It was quality. The only reason he didn't end up at a League 1 club is because he screwed his career up. Yeah, I mean, he was doing really well, Archibald. I think he will probably get a move again now. Someone will take a chance on him because they're going to be looking at cheap free signings essentially this year. And unfortunately, most of the Macclesfield squad have become that. And on the pitch, Macclesfield overachieved. They took 17 points deducted to go down by 1 or 2. I mean, they stayed up convincingly on the pitch. Not him. He was at Udacity. He went up. Vale loved their khaki so much. Yeah, I mean, I don't like to slag off fans because it is normally a minority. And the same, I said this before in one of the streams. Luton have about 20. We've got a reputation as a whole fan base because of about 20 people. But actually, most people who go to the football ground are family, are elderly people who are having a great time and just want to relax. So it's a shame to tarnish the brush. Unfortunately, there will always be a few at every club. But generally, most clubs have a good fan base and most football fans are great. Hopefully, because of the restrictions that are going to be in place, a lot of teams will be much more stern on their ground punishments for fans who are causing trouble. because now they're not going to need their income because they're going to be relying on you come out and another one goes in. So we've got 3 minutes left here. We need a goal, so I'm going to go attacking. We're going to do our usual, be more expressive, push forward, get it out to the fullbacks. Just try and nick one from somewhere. And fingers crossed we can get a point. Because Everton, mid-table club, we'd like to be getting a result. It's not going to come. It's going to be a 2-1 defeat, I'm afraid. Not the best way to end there. So we are dropping down the Premier League a bit. I think we have to focus on winning the Europa League too. I just can't believe that there were apparently 41 potential buyers for Wigan and not a single one fancy going an hour down the road to Macclesfield. I mean, yes, I agree with that. I also agree that with 41 potential buyers for Wigan, that the one they've allowed to pass the owners and directors test and been so lenient with has done this to the club within days. I mean, how can you not have sterner tests in place? It baffles me. I mean, look at what's going on Sheffield Wednesday now. There's the Charlton situation. I mean, potentially next season's championship relegation zone will be decided by points deductions. It probably will come down to that, which is a really sad thing to see. But I guess it's a reward for clubs like Luton and Wickham now who are run the right way. But I still feel for the fans because they're the ones who suffer. It's hard for Luton fans considering the constant stereotypes on the area. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the chants are about immigration and the fans in the area and the fact that it's voted the worst town quite often. It needs the regeneration that the ground will bring and all of the surrounding areas in the town centre. It's not as bad as some of the places I've been to, but it's got a reputation. So it's one of those things. But I can honestly say Luton, for me, it's been a good home. There's plenty of things wrong with it. It's not a great place compared to some that you've been to, but could be worse. And even the ground that people slate, the fact that everyone takes the video of the entrance to the away end through the terrace street, you don't get that at most other grounds. It's got character, if nothing else, as we mentioned in the Stadium Review series. So as we mentioned before, we finished this episode in 8th in the Premier League. We'll look in a moment to see where we are in the table in terms of points. We are going to take the unprecedented step of playing one game off camera, which will Hapoel Beersheva. We've basically wrapped up qualification. We beat them 4-0 on the road. We'll get by again. But then we've got a 2.5 week break and we'll be back after the internationals. So we'll be back for Arsenal at the start of next week's live stream. Hopefully, internet permitting, we'll be back at the start for 10 AM again. And we'll be able to get cracking and move back up the league. Let's finish on the competition screen so we can see where at the moment. We are basically through in the Europa League too. We're in 8th place in the Premier League and it's very tight after that top 3. You can see, although they've got a game in hand, Stoke are just starting to drop off a little now. Leicester at the top. Are they going to repeat their miracle success? But we're 10 points clear of relegation. No threat of that. And we have to target a win in the Europa League too. If we can win that, Europa League football guaranteed and a trophy, which is the main objective of the series. But thank you to everyone for coming along this morning. There's always Grimsby that could challenge for being worst town in the country. I have not been to Grimsby's ground, but that sort of area, I've never had a problem. So I won't, again, I'm not going to stereotype a whole group, but all I would say is there are loads of places that aren't great. And Luton is one of them, and there's probably millions of others as well. But thank you to everyone for coming along this morning. I really have appreciated it. It's been brilliant to have the chat so active. It's been great to have so many of you watching most of the time. And it's great to have so many thumbs up as well. So if you haven't, please do put a thumbs up on it. Please do get involved in the chat. Please do get involved in the comments, if you're watching on replay. And you'll be able to catch up with any of the bits you've missed earlier on, as it will go live on the channel later once it's uploaded to YouTube. But a big thanks again. I do appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you next week at the same time. But in the meantime, there's daily FM20 videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Silkman, see you later.